Foinga, he is gone. And Birnbaum is hurt. Touchdown, Idaho. Birnbaum's down at the 33. His back or his neck, but you can see pressure right up the middle. Kosi will come. No Foinga comes up the middle, and there's just a big pressure that's put on by Maltosi, and then it's off to the races for Nofo. Huge turn of events. Cougars were looking like they were going to put it in the end zone or get 3 out of it. Touchdown like they did. Baylor did to UNLV. What an incredible finish to that football game a week ago. That'll be.
We are the tribe from the north. We're brave and we're bold. Defeating our rivals never gets old. Making our way to the Big Sky Conference. Watch out, 'cause here comes the silver and gold. Whoa, whoa. This is Tubbs at the club for the Vandals of Idaho.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubbs of the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, going solo, as you can see. Look, we record when we can, guys, and every once in a while, we're on a skeleton crew. Dallas made the mistake of going to the Washington State-Oregon game in Pullman. Spoiler alert, you got to see some history, but not the kind of history you want to. Martin made the mistake of doing family stuff in Flagstaff so he could be at the Idaho NAU game. So maybe not quite a mistake. And then one of our backups, Taryn Kovac, he's a reporter who is busy being a reporter at the Washington State-Oregon game. So you guys are stuck with me. It's just solo Brian. This is when I could fit it in, but we're done with the subtext, guys. This has been a great day for Idaho football. We're going to jump in around the bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. The only topic on the agenda is Idaho looks pretty damn good in Big Sky Conference opener, beats the shit out of NAU, Northern Arizona, whatever, 27-10 in Flagstaff. So the rhythm of this game was, honestly, Idaho immediately looks like the Idaho team that a lot of us hoped we saw, or that we'd have after the Washington State Indiana games. Idaho scores early. First possession on a 3-yard run by Rashawn Johnson, a 13-play, 75-yard run 75-yard drive that ate up 7 minutes and 31 seconds of clock time. NAU responds with a touchdown drive of their own, 13 plays, 75 yards on a 5-yard touchdown pass from RJ Martinez to Aleshwan Taylor. Idaho, look, and it was back and forth scoring early because Idaho kicks a field goal next possession, holds NAU. Idaho gets a touchdown on a 2-yard pass, Connor Whitney from Giovanni McCoy, and NAU closes the half with a field goal to make it 17-10. There was no scoring from NAU for the rest of the game. Idaho closed out with a third quarter field goal by Ricardo Chavez. Chavez goes 2 for 2 from field goals. He has not missed a single field goal this season, man. I've said it earlier. I'm going to say it 1,000 times. Ricardo Chavez as a kicker looks like a damn pro right now. Rashawn Johnson puts the exclamation point on the evening with a 9-yard touchdown run to cap off a 6-play, 39-yard drive. That's it, 27-10. Idaho, honestly, the game was 27-10. It did not feel like a 17-point game. Idaho dominated this game minus that first drive where NAU responded to Idaho's touchdown with a touchdown of their own. Idaho dominated this game. Yeah, it was 17 points. It felt like a 30-ish point win because, look, NAU could do almost nothing minus that one drive. And on the other drive, NAU scored. They kicked that field goal. That was buttressed on I'm going to call it shaky, roughing the passer penalty that added 15 yards to NAU's progress. Minus that, look, there's just nothing for the Lumberjacks, which lets me jump right in. Hey, what went well for Idaho? Well, simple version, a lot of shit went well. But I am going to start with a pretty damn impressive defensive effort from Rob Borisch and company. Northern Arizona gains 179 total yards. And look, got to contextualize that too. already said their first NAU's first drive, they go 75 yards. So after that first drive, in roughly 3.5 quarters, 3 quarters and the third, whatever, Northern Arizona accrues a total of 104 yards for the rest of the game. That's it. Truly, Idaho shut NAU down. Doesn't matter which part of the game you want to look at. Lumberjacks passing the ball, and RJ Martinez is not a bad Big Sky quarterback. Last season, through freshman of the year, through 13 touchdowns, 1 pick, all of it in Big Sky play. Well, today, RJ Martinez is held to 15 of 35, so sub 50% completion percentage, 127 total yards, throws 1 touchdown and 1 pick, sacked twice, longest pass, 26 yards. So look, Idaho secondary absolutely was surrendering nothing. By the way, Tommy McCormick picked off another pass. The announcing team brought this up, the Northern Arizona announcing team. Tommy McCormick's interception that's the 8th turnover Idaho has forced this 2022 season. That equals the total of what Idaho forced in all of 2021. And Idaho played Simon Frazier in 2021. We obviously did not this year. So Idaho's 4 games into an 11-game season. We already have forced the exact same amount of turnovers as we did last season. So look, if you were hoping for the promise we saw in those first 2 weeks to materialize into something, this NAU game, mark this one. This is where we can say, okay, Rob Borisch as a coach, the talent that we've recruited, and also look the secondary talent that we retained from last season. Also other guys like Favai. He was a linebacker on the team last season. Look, so we had some holdovers, but the guys we had as holdovers in the secondary, for the most part, because that's who plays. We have a couple transfers, and mostly these are guys from on the team last year. They're clearly good enough. Going from being a secondary that in Big Sky play gave up 20 touchdown passes in 2021 and picked off 2 total passes. And now they're playing teams like Northern Arizona. NAU's a solid Big Sky team, and surrendering, 129 yards for RJ Martinez through the air. That's a damn good effort for Idaho on the defensive side of the ball. But it was not just through the air, of course, that Idaho shut NAU down, because look, NAU accrued fewer than 200 total yards. So on the ground, NAU 52 total yards. That's it. So it did not matter what Northern Arizona after that first drive tried to do. They couldn't. The end. That was absolutely it. If we're looking at, you want to look at yards per play, rushing, NAU averaged 2.3 yards per rush, 23 attempts for 52 net yards. They gained 80 total, lost a few from sacks, 28 yards total lost. So 52 rushing yards on 23 attempts. Man, that's about as good an effort as you can ask for. And if you were concerned at all about how Drake was able to rush on Idaho early, well, hey, let's put it to bed at least a little bit. Northern Arizona is a middle-ish of the pack Big Sky team, and Idaho absolutely dominates on the defensive side of the ball the entire game minus 1 drive. Really hard to stress how overall impressive Idaho's defensive effort was. Just a couple defensive stats now to bring up. Favai, 8 total tackles, led the team. Tommy McCormick already covered. He picked off a pass. Also, he finishes with 7 tackles, 5 solo, 2 assisted. Marcus Harris has a pass breakup and 5 tackles as well. Giuliano Falanico picks up 3 total tackles, including a sack and a quarterback hurry. Kamari Bailey also picks up quarterback hurry. Leo Tombo with 2 QB hurries. But again, this was got to bring up Mervin Kenyon. Mervin Kenyon, the third, 2 pass breakups as well. Just overall, wire to wire, Idaho defensively, it is unbelievable to me to think that we as Vandals watched a good amount of these guys who were on the team last season. There's some new dudes, of course, like Paul Mawala was not on the team last year. He's looked great as well. Falanico was not on the team last year, but hey, Favai was on the team as a linebacker last season. Marcus Harris was on the team last year as a cornerback. Tommy McCormick was on the team last year. Those guys, it just looks completely different on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to get to offense in a minute, but this was just a thorough domination. And look, one of the stats that's typically indicative, a lot of people knee-jerk jump to time of possession is being something dictated by the offense and the offensive strategy. And absolutely that mattered in how the time of possession split finished for this game. But Idaho, man, time of possession, the Vandals hold on the ball for 41 minutes, 28 seconds. NAU has the ball for 18 minutes and 32 seconds total. Some of that is certainly the rhythm of the offense, just like against WSU. Idaho tends to run down the play clock all the way. But the reason we had that, 41, almost 42 minutes to 18 minutes and change split is because once NAU had the ball, well, they were punting it away most of the time anyway. Just went over. They had 2 total drives where they scored. Just an absolute domination on the defensive side of the ball. Look at NAU's drives to close the game. I'm just going to go at the end of the second quarter. So that's when NAU had their field goal. So in 3 possessions in the first half, which got to bring this up. This was one of the fastest damn football games I will ever watch. There's a lot of family members who may have people like me who like to watch football who we're going to love Jason Eck. They don't care. They might not care about the wins and losses. We've got a lot of family members who are probably going to say, well, thank God Jason Eck's getting these games done in like 3 hours. I don't care how Idaho does. He's my new favorite coach. But NAU has 3 total first half possessions, a touchdown, punt, and a field goal. Here's our second half possessions. Punt, they had -5 total yards on drive. Next possession, punt, 1 total yard. Next possession, interception, had accrued 25 total yards. Next possession, punt, -6 yards. Next possession, turnover on down, screwed 31 yards. Last possession, punt, -3 yards. And you check that out in the second half, roughly half the NAU possessions were for negative yardage. More than half the NAU possessions were for somewhere between 1 and -6 yards. So, man, there is not a whole lot more I think you can ask of University of Idaho's defense. Just an absolutely sound job on that side of the ball. Obviously, you can see in the box score holding a team to 10 points. That certainly means defense was effective. But again, this was a 17-point game that felt like a 30 or 35-point game because Northern Arizona absolutely could not do anything. Look in the comment section. Got half cheetah. Will View brings up held NAU to 57 rushing yards, which I brought that up. Man, real impressive. Northern Arizona has struggled offensively this season, and Idaho continues that trend against North Dakota. Northern Arizona, and North Dakota is not a bad football team. Northern Arizona looked like maybe they had righted their ship. RJ Martinez threw for over 300 yards, close to what people were expecting of the dude this year. Well, didn't happen this week against Idaho, and NAU is at home. So, yeah, man, absolutely great effort defensively. So what else went well? Offensive side of the ball. Look, Idaho scores 27 points. This was a game that it certainly felt like Idaho could have finished with more than 27 points. So individual stats. Giovanni McCoy, real efficient, 18 of 20. And his 2 incomplete passes, one was a throwaway, so it was the pass he should have made. And then it was a breakup, good play by the NAU's cornerback. I don't remember who it was. But Giovanni McCoy goes 18 to 20, 184 yards, throws a touchdown, gets sacked once. But McCoy looked real strong today. In addition to that, McCoy, 4 rushes for a net, or for total 22 yards, lost 4 yards on a sack. So a total, it's 4 rushes for 18 yards. But McCoy certainly kept some plays alive with his legs. And wasn't asked by Eck to throw it, 100 times, 20 total passes. Man, if he's going to complete 18 pass completions for almost 200 yards and touchdown, a few of those plays were pretty good looks of McCoy extending the play, having to roll out to his right, kind of making something out of nothing. Real impressive outing. Northern Arizona has looked stronger defensively this season, and well, McCoy did everything he was asked to do. And pretty sound night. Also, Hayden Hatton completes one of one pass attempts for 30 yards. Jason Eck has another trick play, like Taryn Kovac on our show said. Hey, there's a few trick plays we didn't see in those first 2 games. Well, hey, we had another wide receiver pass. Hayden Hatton one for 30 yards. So on the ground, Idaho real effective as well. So the the split overall pass attempts, counting Hayden Hatton, is Idaho threw 21 times. Idaho rushed 48 times. So that's, rushing about twice as many times as we passed it. But some of that was chewing up clock. Some of it was because Idaho was effective on the ground. 48 rushes for 201 yards. Rashawn Johnson led the way as far as rush attempts, 25 rushes for 86 yards, or 25 rushes for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, a long of 10. 3.4 yards per rush. Not like the most efficient, but Rashawn Johnson was solid for sure. Anthony Woods left in the third quarter with injury, and Anthony Woods again looked great while he was on the field. 18 rushes for 84 yards, 4.7 average, 20 yards. His longest rush was 20 yards. Elisha Cummings saw a little bit of action as well, but overall, Rashawn Johnson and Anthony Woods, they are a timeshare for Idaho offensively, and expect to see that going forward. We're really hoping Anthony Woods is going to be okay for next week's homecoming against Northern Colorado. As of midnight now on Sunday, there's no news about what Anthony Woods' actual injury is. We're all fingers crossed he's going to be okay. No reason to think he won't be okay, but also no reason to say he is okay because there's no news. Receiving, Jermaine Jackson again leads Idaho. He just looks like our number one guy. 5 receptions for 96 yards. Therese Traynor did not play, but look, Idaho's doing fine without him. We'll be stoked when Therese Traynor's back on the field, but I don't see the wideout room looking like they're missing anything at this point. Michael Graves, also a sophomore, kind of a revelation this season. 5 catches for 50 yards. Hayden Hatton, 5 catches for 49 yards, and Connor Whitney, 4 catches for 19 yards. He had the touchdown reception from McCoy. That's the offensive stats, but also to walk through a little bit of what it seemed like experientially. I mean, Idaho didn't punt until the second half. Look, Idaho's drives. We had the Vandals start out for first drive, 7-minute drive, 7.5-minute drive, 75 yards for a touchdown. Next drive, after NAU scores, Idaho has a 6-minute, 41-second drive for 68 yards, ends in a field goal. Next drive, Idaho, 11 plays, 88 yards, 6 minutes, 7 seconds, ends in a touchdown. That's the Idaho possessions, other than one play taking a knee to end the second half. Idaho officially 4 possessions, but from the way most people count, Idaho essentially has 3 possessions in the first half. All of them are scores. And as far as chewing the clock, those 3 possessions, we have around 20-ish minutes of 20-ish minutes of time of possession. So just not only is Idaho moving the ball, yeah, they're slowing the pace down, but a slow pace, if you're not doing anything, doesn't matter. While Idaho is able to move the ball, man, they are just, against a team like Northern Arizona, it just puts the offense on ice, which, hey, but defensively didn't matter if NAU had the ball because Idaho was shutting them out pretty damn quick. This was just a thorough ass-kicking on both sides of the ball. Possessions for Idaho in the second half. Not going to say the Vandals exactly let off the gas because I don't think they did. It was just the first half, every possession was a score. Second half, we got a field goal on a 35-play, 35-yard drive, took up 3 minutes. Next 2 possessions are punts, but one of the possessions chewed up 8 plays, 43 yards, and almost 6 minutes of game time. Following possession is a 6-play drive for a touchdown. And look, at that point, we're in the fourth quarter. Idaho's up 27-10. That's the score it's going to finish at. But at that point, Idaho was pretty clearly just kind of chewing up clock to end this game. This wasn't the Paul Petrino version of, I don't know, run it up the middle every single time until it's 3rd and long, then throw an incomplete pass. No, this was Jason Eck intentionally knowing that, hey, the Vandals are dominating this game. There's no need to really push the score up, but whole point was just chew clock, and they did it. So that's the basic narrative of the game. My takeaways before it gets stuff like game balls are, one, we did not see Jack Lane play this game, so maybe that means we dial back to Jack Lane might play opportunistically. Against Drake, he played in the second quarter. It was clearly the game was not decided when Jack Lane went in. This time, we didn't see him play a single snap. But look, Giovanni McCoy looked great, so I don't know why in God's name you'd want to pull a guy who's 18 to 20, doing everything he needs to do. There certainly are going to be times in the season where Giovanni McCoy is going to be asked to pass a little more than on 1/3 of the plays, because look, Idaho rushed about a little more than twice as many times as we passed. That's obviously not going to be the case every single game, but this far in the season, McCoy is given pretty good reason to believe that if his number's called more than 20 times, us as Vandals should be confident there's a good chance he's going to look all right. He certainly has an arm. He can certainly, with his legs, he's been pretty elusive. He doesn't break big runs, but he does extend plays. He is able to extend drives on, third and short-ish or something like that, where he's able to make if there's nothing, he'll tuck and run, gets enough to move the sticks, which is all he needs to do. Further takeaways: Idaho's offensive line is one of the bigger questions on the team. It's still going to be a big question throughout the rest of the season. I don't think this game alone should let you think, hey, the Vandals' offensive line is absolutely going to dominate against teams like Montana or teams like Sacramento State that look like they're very good. But Northern Arizona, they're one of the teams that Idaho has to be able to beat if there's going to be any prayer of this season finishing the way a lot of us hope and feel that this season could. NAU's part of that group of 4-ish, 5-ish teams, depending on who you count, of Idaho, Northern Arizona, Portland State, Eastern Washington, and UC Davis. Of a couple of those teams are going to have a shot at the playoffs. And the teams out of that group that have a shot in the playoffs, they're the type of teams that are going to beat the shitty teams. Like, they're going to beat your Northern Colorados, they're going to beat your Idaho States and your Cal Polys. But Idaho plays 4 of those teams. We play Portland State. We've already played Northern Arizona. We play Eastern Washington, UC Davis later. Both those are our home games. If Idaho's going to have a prayer at the playoffs, we're going to have to pick up a good amount of wins against those solid teams. Some of those teams that, since Idaho joined the Big Sky back in 2018, Vandals certainly have not been doing that. Well, Idaho picks off one today, does so in absolutely convincing fashion, enough so that I think if you were nervous about the UC Davis, Eastern Washington games later in the season, you can look at this NAU game and think, you know what, maybe it's time to reevaluate my anxieties. I know I look in our preseason episode, I picked Idaho to lose against Eastern and UC Davis later in the year. I'm starting to think, you know what, look, these Vandals are doing what they need to do. They're looking for real. I had a conversation with a friend after the game, and one of the things he brought up is because of Vandal PTSD, you watch Idaho, you keep thinking, okay, like, when does Idaho screw it up? When is Idaho going to commit a dumb turnover? When's Idaho going to have a mental lapse defensively that leads to a huge touchdown followed by Idaho going 3 out? Well, didn't happen. If you were waiting for that to happen, good news, never did. Jason Eck, Rob Orch, Luke Schleisner, man, coaching staff looks great. Special teams again looks good. Ricardo Chavez is absolutely, to me, there's no way there's a better field goal kicker in the Big Sky right now than Ricardo Chavez. Man, the length he gets on his field goals, he looks like a guy who can make money as a kicker at some point. Boy, did we luck out snagging Chavez from a junior college All-American. So, look, offensive line play, circling back after the tangent. Idaho rushes 3.9 yards per rush. Not the most. Look, 3.9 yards per rush is not the most impressive number in the history of football, but it was certainly good enough. Idaho was able to move the ball pretty damn well on the ground too. So I guess what I'd say is that 3.9 yards per rush, it actually did feel in the game as though it was a steady 3.9-ish, 4-ish yards per rush, that Idaho could advance the ball pretty damn well, man, especially in that first half. 3 possessions, 3 scores, then first possession, second half, Idaho scores again. So maybe that's a number you look at and you say, look, box scores don't always tell the entire story. You got to watch the game to know what actually happened. So Idaho rushing wise, I feel okay about Idaho right now. I'll feel a lot better when I hear that Anthony Woods is playing against Northern Colorado next week, because Rashawn Johnson is solid. He's a running back a lot of teams would like to have. I think it's pretty clear Anthony Woods is the more dynamic running back for Idaho. Rashawn's a nice complement. Having those two lets us not have to have one rusher rush, 25, 28 times in a game, which as far as health later into the season, that absolutely will matter. But Anthony Woods is a weapon, honestly, unlike I've seen at Idaho for a long time. Certainly a weapon I haven't seen in Idaho since Idaho joined the Big Sky back in 2018. So other takeaways, This probably falls a little bit under the, hey, what went right? I mean, this is a bit of a mix. Idaho penalties, man. Sorry, this is not going right. This is jumping back to Idaho. This did not go right. Idaho did have an issue with penalties. 8 penalties for 65 yards. Some of those penalties, including some false starts, they're the kind of penalties where, look, if this is Idaho playing Montana, this is Idaho playing Sac State, maybe UC Davis, you're thinking, okay, these are kind of backbreaking penalties. That's something that fingers crossed has to get cleaned up. Earlier in the season, Idaho had not had as much issues with penalties. It creeped up a little bit against Drake, and this game, penalties were frustration. It obviously did not cost Idaho the game. Idaho made up for the penalties fine, but 8 penalties for 65 yards. You can expect Jason X not exactly elated about that type of production penalty wise. Other things that, room for improvement. Idaho goes 3 of 11 on third down conversions. Now we'll say, look, Idaho went 2 of 2 on fourth down. So I know this isn't third down, but that third down on third or fourth down, Idaho converted five times on a total of 13 opportunities, or if you want to round the 2 fourth down into third down, just saying it extended the drives 5 times in 11 possessions, or in 11 opportunities. Idaho is able to extend drives. 3 of 11, not quite what you want, but hey, Idaho goes 5 of 5 scoring in the red zone. We sacked NAU twice for 20 yards. Again, time of possession, man. That is just a thing. That's kind of been a constant for Idaho in all their games, including Washington State and Indiana, where Idaho is especially when Idaho can move the ball. Maybe we should have seen this coming, because in the WSU Indiana games, Idaho had that rhythm of having drives early and then just getting nothing offensively for 3 quarters. But still, Idaho time of possession was pretty impressive. This is a game where Idaho looked kind of like, I bet a lot of people imagined Idaho looking South Dakota State-ish, because why in God's name would you not, with Jason X the coach? And this is a game that did feel South Dakota State-ish, as in complete dominance in time of possession in a way that mattered. Now, look, Eastern Washington, they're a different example of this, of sometimes they look like they get dominated time of possession-wise, but it's because they score real quick. That wasn't the case. This was an example where time of possession put NAU on ice. And that was part of why the second half of this game, especially after Idaho scores early in the second half, this game felt like it was honestly over for a long time. It was still exciting because it felt good as a Vandal to actually feel like we should win a game on the road, and then we do. But NAU didn't really threaten at all until, after that field goal that the Lumberjacks had, bring them up to 10. They didn't threaten at all. The game was essentially over because of how Idaho handled both sides of the ball. But look, we're closing in on game balls. Couple other notes. This is the third time Idaho's looked pretty damn good on the road, guys. So we're closing in, to me, on the last few seasons in Idaho football. Everyone knew, look, Idaho's going to face plant on the road against anyone, virtually anyone. But if the team isn't catastrophically terrible, like Idaho State at the end of last season, when both Petrino and Fennessy were fired, and it was the most meaningless game in the history of meaningless games, those were the kind of road games Idaho's won in the last 5 years or so. That's not going to be the case this season, guys. Idaho had 2 strong showings against Washington State and Indiana, and now we just beat the shit out of Northern Arizona on the road. That's another takeaway, guys. I think the road issue Vandals have had for a long time. We've had three separate times. 2 is a trend, 3 is a pattern, guys. Idaho has shown they can show up on the road 3 times this season. Expect that to be something that we just see repeatedly throughout the season, which Vandals still have Montana on the road, Sacramento State on the road, and Vandals also close the season out with Idaho State on the road. So if the Vandals are going to make the playoffs, we got to get to that 7-win threshold. There's no way to do that without picking off some more road wins. Idaho State looks like a brain dead one to pick at this point, but Idaho's going to have to beat some pretty good teams. And look, we've got one of the wins we needed. To me, the early season stretch for Idaho is the most important stretch of the season, because if the Vandals are going to have an okay season, we have to go 3-0 in that run of Drake at Northern Arizona, then hosting Northern Colorado next week for homecoming. Both Vandals have picked off 2 convincing wins out of those 3. And spoiler alert, Dylan McCaffrey is going to be starting for Northern Colorado. He started this week for the Bears against Idaho State, had the game of his career. Rob Orich and co. is going to look at the tape from Northern Colorado, Idaho State, and I think that we're going to see an effort that is, if you thought NAU is impressive, you have got to expect Rob Orich and co. are going to have no difficulty with Northern Colorado because RJ Martinez is much better than Dylan McCaffrey. Northern Colorado can't run on anyone, and they've played 3 shitty FCS teams so far, and again, in none of those games could Northern Colorado run. Idaho is easily the best FCS team that Northern Colorado is going to play. So defensively, guys, I just think Idaho is going to be pretty good. That's another generalizable takeaway to me is defensively, these dudes just look sound. Now, things to pay attention to, already hit penalties. Already hit third down conversions were not as good, that we did go 2-2 on fourth down. We did see Jason Hallbeck was injured. He walked off on his own power, so a little concern there. Anthony Woods, he left the game in the third quarter, did not come back. Fingers crossed, the dude's okay. Jordan Dwyer was hurt against Drake. Dwyer did not play against Northern Arizona. We're hopeful that we'll see Dwyer on the field this coming week. Honestly, I expected we were going to see him this week, but we did not. Idaho didn't need him. We're fine without Jordan Dwyer playing, but that's another weapon that has missed some time. You hope he's okay. But fingers crossed. So honestly, it's a pretty narrow window to me of things that you would take away from this game and say they were disappointing at all from Idaho. It's really just penalties and third down conversions were not great. Look, 27 points to me, this easily could have been much more. This was not a game like against Drake where Idaho kicked 4 field goals and you're kind of pissed that the Vandals kicked 4 field goals. 2 field goals is fine. Idaho scores every single time we're in the red zone, and settling for 2 field goals is okay because we punched it in the end zone 3 times. So it was easily enough for the win at Northern Arizona. Game balls for me. Defensive side, you just got to go with Giovanni McCoy, which I feel like that is a cop-out because it's pretty easy right now with how football is broadly to just knee-jerk think, okay, well, quarterback always gets game ball. But look, Idaho rushed it 48 times. We passed it 21. McCoy passed 20 total times. But even with how there were times, especially early, Idaho looked a little bit scared to throw the ball around very much in the first quarter. Then later on, there was a little bit of run where it was slightly confusing, where it seemed like Idaho's passing a little bit more proportionately than they needed to. So I guess that was a little bit weird for a couple moments. But back to the game ball thing, man. Giovanni McCoy, in spite of not having, let's say, for the whole game, a regular rhythm of passes because of that play calling distribution of 48 rushes to 20 pass attempts for McCoy, dude, McCoy looked the part of a solid Big Sky starter. Again, 18 to 20, 184 yards and a touchdown. Extended plays with his leg, eluded some sacks. Was real impressed to see redshirt freshman Giovanni McCoy going out there. And look, we talked about last week, if Jason Eck's going to think about playing Jack Lane, you have to know that makes it seem like there's a glacial kind of quarterback competition taking place this season. But look at that confidence placed in Giovanni McCoy. This was absolutely Idaho had to pick off that win to start the Big Sky season. They did. McCoy, he did everything he could possibly have done, guys. If McCoy had gotten to throw it 35 times, he would have easily been around 300-ish yards and had a much more sexy stat line. But Giovanni McCoy, real impressive in my mind. Game ball on the defensive side, again, there's a ton of dudes this could go to. But I'm going to go with Tommy McCormick. Second on the team in tackles, picked off another pass. Just impressive to see. And look, we've brought up Marcus Harris as another impact player in the cornerback room. We've also talked about, dudes like Jeremiah Salam, another cornerback who it's a name that's not new to Vandals. He's had moments where he's looked great. By the way, Jeremiah Salam, 2 tackles this game. But my game ball game, it's going to go to Tommy McCormick. The Idaho secondary, that was one of the position groups for the last forever is always a thing people are concerned about with Idaho football. It's the thing this show was concerned about with Idaho football. Damn, Idaho's secondary looks like a relative strength at this point. Tommy McCormick is one of the guys who you got to highlight as a reason why this is a relative strength. And Idaho's already forced as many turnovers. This is not just a secondary, but Idaho as a team has already forced more turnovers than as many turnovers as Vandals forced all of last season. And hey, in one Big Sky game with Tommy McCormick picking that pass off, we're halfway to the total number of passes Idaho picked off in 2021, guys. This defensive unit is just sound. That's it. There's the worries that I have now. Honestly, it more has to do with, hey, is the front seven going to be able to contain bigger teams? Now, well, hey, Northern Arizona should, Dallas talked about on the preview, relative to the size of the offensive line at Northern Arizona, you'd expect they could be more effective rushing the ball. Lumberjacks were down a couple running backs, so hey, that kind of matters. But Idaho holds Lumberjacks to sub 60 rushing yards. That's not exactly concerned, but Tommy McCormick he's not. Look, Montana State has touchdown Tommy Mellott at cornerback. Well, Idaho's got turnover Tommy McCormick in our secondary. That is at least second pass he's picked off. Forgive me, I'm going solo, so I can't look up everything. At least second pass McCormick's picked off. He's also forced at least one fumble. Dude looked great. So McCormick gets my game ball. This is we're about to close it out. This has been brought to you, as always, guys, by Hughes River Expedition, the obviously a fantastic sponsor. And hey, if you guys are interested in sponsoring the show, well, get in line, because Hughes River Expedition, they're Vandal owned and operated. This is, if you want to go on vacation of a lifetime, if you want to go on any sort of all-inclusive week-long vacation where you're going on multi-day trips down the Middle Fork of the Salmon or the main Salmon River of no return, Salmon River Canyons or the Selway, you want to do anything like special trips, see the Perseid meteor shower, you want to camp on pristine beaches, see amazing white water, hike scenic trails, take in the history along the rivers of Idaho and Montana, fish some of the most remote stretches river in the country, just give HRE a call. You bring your clothes, they take care of the rest. They've been Vandal owned and operated since 1976, ready to take you on a vacation of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Give them a call at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesriver.com. So that's essentially the episode, dudes. Idaho's got Northern Colorado, for homecoming this week. And man, we got Idaho. We're going to be begging people on this show. We're going to be begging you on the Tuesday show. Please, Vandals, you have to reward Jason Eck and Co. You have to award the University of Idaho Athletic Department. They're doing a ton of right things right now. They're doing a ton of the right outreach. They're doing a ton of social media stuff that really does matter now. It's not just Twitter shit. This outreach, both online and in person, it all matters. It doesn't matter if Idaho's not winning a ton of football games, but Jason Eck he's won every game he's supposed to, guys. 2-0 in the FCS. Pack the dome for homecoming. Please reward the work that people are doing for Idaho. When people do, this is not just an Idaho football thing. This is, generally speaking, an outside of football life thing, but I'm going to really hammer it home with football. If you've been a long-suffering Vandal pissed about how things are for a long time, this football team's going the other way. They are holding up their end of the bargain on the field. They're holding up their end of the bargain with outreach. The administration's holding up their end of the bargain too. As fans, we have to reward when people, institutions, our teams are doing everything that we need them to do. And that's what this Idaho football team is doing right now. They're going to beat the shit out of Northern Colorado for homecoming. So please, we need to get a better showing in the dome than we had our first week. If you're a fan who's on the fence, well, look, we just picked up a good road win. Northern Colorado is nowhere near as good as Northern Arizona. So expect, if we have any sort of environment in the dome for homecoming where, it's not the announced figure from Drake of 5,800, we're getting past the 10,000 figure. That's going to be a kick-ass environment, guys. So if you can go to Moscow, please get your ass there. Get behind this team. Football season is already 4 weeks through. It's a 12-week season total, but Idaho only plays 11 weeks. We have that bye week after the Northern Colorado game next week. Vandals, the football season in games played, we're already more than a third of the way through. This shit goes by in a blink. So if you're on the fence, get off the fence, get to Moscow. again, congratulations to Idaho. This is so much more fun to cover a team like this. This is so much more fun to see new blood coming in and doing. They're living up to all the potential that we hoped this team had. Look, to me, this looks like a team that I will not write Idaho off of the playoffs. There are some big games. Idaho has to beat the hell out of Northern Colorado next week. After that, if we're sitting at 2-0 in Big Sky play, Idaho needs to go at 4-2 or at worst 3-3 in Big Sky play to close that out. We've got Idaho has Montana, Sacramento State on the schedule, sure, but look, there's some solid teams left still other than those two. Idaho's going to have to beat Portland State. We're going to have to get at least one win out of Eastern and UC Davis. We're going to have to beat Idaho State. Realistically, Idaho needs to beat the hell out of the bottom-ish half teams left on the schedule. That's Portland State, Northern Colorado next week, Idaho State to close season out. That's three games. Idaho already has 2 conference wins. So look, if Idaho wins those 3, that's 5 conference wins. We have to, in the 4 games of tougher teams Idaho has left, that's Montana, Sac State, Eastern, UC Davis. If Idaho's going to make the playoffs, we have to pick off probably 2 of those 4. And I wouldn't write that off yet, guys. A lot of there's still some things that Idaho's going to have to answer. Still some stuff to work on. I bet Martin and Dallas are going to be able to talk about it in their minute or so on Tuesday. But this is a week to celebrate. Idaho dominates pretty damn close to wire. After that 75-yard drive, barely surrenders 100 yards defensively. And it's just a good day to be a Vandal, guys. Like our stuff, follow us on YouTube. That's one of the ways you can support the show. If you want your very own King Spud sticker, we've been selling those, guys. Direct message either me or the Tubbs at the Club accounts. It's at Brian Marceau or at Tubbs at the Club. We're selling the King Spud stickers, 1 for $3, 2 for $5. There's nowhere else you guys are going to get this. It's another way you can support the show. As always, there's our Patreon at patreon.com/Tubbs at the Club. We have some kick-ass members in our Discord. The Discord we have running during the game, it's a chat thread. It's a chat that's going on the entire time. It's pretty damn fun. Honestly, I spend more time in the chat than on Twitter or anything like that, even though, spoiler alert, it's better outreach for me to do the Twitter stuff. Our Discord's just more fun, guys. So there's a few ways you can support the show. Make sure to support your Vandals. On Tuesday, the crew's going to be back, so it won't be just me solo. Tomorrow, or if you're listening to this on Sunday, I still have the Big Sky Podcast Network Power Ranking episode that I'll be doing. Tubbs the Club is honestly one of the best places for Big Sky content. We've got we do the previews Tuesday, we do the post episode shows as you're seeing now, and we do a weekly episode. I don't think there's a better place to get at. If you want to know everything that there is to know about the Big Sky, I don't think there's a better channel, but I'm on the channel. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks everyone who's taking part in the Discord. Thanks everyone who's going to travel to the Northern Colorado game. And with that, I'm going to eventually find a video to play us out. Thanks for tuning in, and go Vandals. Motherfucker. Jesus Christ. This is producer Brian doing a terrible job of even finding